Columns of smoke were seen rising into the sky of Beirut earlier this morning after Israel carried out airstrikes in the Lebanese capital. Israel's military said fighter jets targeted Hezbollah's positions, bombarding southern Lebanon with more than 120 strikes in an hour. Israel said it would soon launch operations on Lebanon's southern coast, telling residents to stay off the beaches and sea for a 60-kilometer stretch along the Mediterranean. The strikes happened as the world marked 1 year since the latest war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, which began on the 7th of October last year. Dozens of pro-Israel supporters and members of the Jewish community in Argentina gathered in Buenos Aires to pay tribute to the victims of the Hamas attack carried out a year ago. During the tribute, demonstrators held up signs showing the faces of the hostages and Israeli flags as they were shown a video of the aftermath of the attack and heard recorded testimonies of survivors.
The woman's job in the room was to the bathroom with 10 people around you. Israel se defenderá del terrorismo para que
Arab Americans held a vigil in Dearborn, Michigan, in solidarity with the Palestinian people in Gaza, where the one-year war has left at least 42,000 casualties. Expressing frustration, anger, but also hope, those gathering lit candles as the sun was setting on the first anniversary of the Hamas attacks that triggered the war in Gaza.
Don't wait around, man.
At a ceremony in Paris organized by the Jewish community to honor the victims of Hamas attacks on the 7th of October last year, French Prime Minister Michel Barnier promised that his country will continue to defend and combat anti-Semitism. Commemorations were held across Europe on Monday to mark the anniversary of Hamas massacre. Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump attended a remembrance event in Florida where he blamed the current U.S. leadership for the Hamas attacks 1 year ago that sparked the war in Gaza. Donald Trump said he was committed to reinforcing ties between the U.S. and Israel and repeated a phrase he has used over the past year that the October 7th attack would never have happened if he was president. In an interview with CBS 60 Minutes, Democratic White House hopeful Kamala Harris said if elected as president, she would not meet Russian President Vladimir Putin for peace talks if Ukraine was not also represented. She said Ukraine must have a say in the future of the country. Criticizing Trump and his policies on Ukraine, she described it as surrendering to the invasion Moscow launched in February 2022. United States has urged Bangladesh's interim government to protect the rights of minority communities as Hindus celebrate their largest festival of Durga Puja in the country. The statement from the US comes in the wake of increasing attacks on the minority Hindu community in Bangladesh following the resignation of then Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and her escape to India in August. North Korea's Kim Jong-un says he will speed up steps to become a nuclear weapons superpower. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said His country will become a military superpower with nuclear weapons and would not rule out using them if enemies attacked it. Still, photographs released by state media showed Kim making a visit to Kim Jong-un University of National Defense and taking group photos with students and officials. During a speech at the university, Kim said he has no intention of attacking South Korea, but if South Korea attempts to use force against North Korea, then he would use all aggression without hesitation. Haiti's Transitional Presidential Council transferred the rotating presidency to architect Leslie Voltaire, despite opposition from outgoing President Edgar Leblanc, who refused to sign a decree ratifying the move. Haiti named the Transition Council in April after arduous negotiations between various sectors of the Caribbean nation's political and civil alliances. It was empowered with choosing a prime minister and wielding certain presidential powers until conditions are considered secure enough for a new election. In Australia, a self-described Nazi became the first person convicted in the Australian state of Victoria of performing an outlawed Nazi salute. Jacob Hersent gave the salute and praised Adolf Hitler in front of news media outside the Victoria County Court on October 27th last year. This was 6 days after the Victoria state government had made the salute illegal. A Melbourne magistrate found Hersent guilty, dismissing defence lawyers' arguments that the gesture wasn't a salute and that the ban unconstitutionally infringed upon Hersent's implied freedom of political communication. He is scheduled to be sentenced on Wednesday and could face 12 months in prison along with a fine. Foreign ministers of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, met in Vientiane, the capital of Laos, as a curtain raiser for the series of summit meetings later in the week. Among the topics expected to be discussed are the ongoing conflicts in Myanmar between the military junta and the resistance forces and the tension in the South China Sea over competing territorial claims. Of course, China will be a name which will be spoken about. On Thursday, leaders and heads of state of key ASEAN dialogue partners will take part in a series of summit meetings which will expand the areas of interest. US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken expected to represent the United States with Premier Li Qiang there for China. Albanian police fired tear gas to disperse opposition protesters who hurled petrol bombs at government buildings and smashed city property in Tirana as they protested the government of Prime Minister Edi Rama. Some of the protesters were seen attacking advertising screens and billboards and set rubbish containers on fire, accusing the government of corruption, nepotism and trying to silence the opposition. Protesters demanded the Prime Minister step down and a caretaker government be installed until next year's general election. More than 1,000 police officers were deployed across to control the crowds. The police said 10 officers had received injuries from petrol bombs and other thrown objects. Kais Saied was announced as winner of Tunisia's presidential election by the country's election authority. The president of the Independent High Authority for Elections, Farouk Bouaskar, said voter participation was 28.8%, with over 2.8 million people turning out to vote out of 9.75 million eligible voters. Final numbers put the percentage of votes that went to incumbent President Kais Saied at 90.69% of votes, just over the 89% noted by exit polls on Sunday. The opposition and the critics have raised concerns about the election results, labeling it as consolidation of authoritarian power. The Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine for the year 2024 has been awarded to scientists Victor Ambros and Gary Ruvkun for the discovery of microRNA and its role in post-transcriptional gene regulation. Their work helped explain how cells specialize and develop into different types, such as muscle and nerve cells. Even though all the cells in an individual contain the same set of genes and instructions for growing and staying alive. Waves from Hurricane Milton pounded Mexico's east coast on Monday. Waves were seen barreling ashore and crashing into Celestine Beach as winds from the storm whipped the tops of palm trees during Hurricane Milton on Monday. Milton strengthened into a Category 5 storm, posing an immediate threat to Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula on its way to Florida, where the state ordered mass evacuations while still recovering from the devastation of Hurricane Helene. Thought that it would be weakened by the time it makes landfall in Florida on Wednesday. Well, counties along the state's western coast have ordered evacuations as they braced for a potentially catastrophic wind flow, rain and a storm surge of 8 to 12 feet. A US judge has directed Google to revamp its mobile app business to give Android users more options for downloading apps and paying for in-app transactions. The order requires Google to make changes to its Play Store to boost competition. This includes allowing users to access Android apps from alternative sources. For the next 3 years, Google must allow other in-app payment systems and permit users to download apps from third-party app stores. Google plans to appeal the decision and will request a pause on the order while the appeal is underway. Russian state media company VGTRK, which runs the nation's major TV stations, faced a large-scale cyber attack on Monday. According to a Ukrainian government source, Ukrainian hackers were allegedly behind this. The website of VGTRK, including its 24-hour news channel Rossiya 24, went offline, displaying a 503 service unavailable error. Additionally, VGTRK confirmed that the attack began on Sunday and has affected both its online and internal services. Interestingly, the attack coincided with Russian President Vladimir Putin's 72nd birthday. US telecom giant Comcast has said that cyber criminals managed to steal the deal of more than 230,000 customers during a ransomware attack on Comcast's third-party debt collection services provider. The services were breached this year. In February, the hacked data includes customers' names, addresses, social security numbers, dates of birth, and Comcast account numbers and ID numbers. Comcast has said that the stolen data belongs to those registered as customers around 2021. The Indian government has issued a warning regarding a new type of cyber fraud called the pension scam. In India, people aged 60 years and above and those who are eligible for pension are required to submit a live certificate every year. With the annual deadline for submitting the certificate soon approaching, cyber crooks are targeting vulnerable individuals through WhatsApp. Scammers are sending fake messages to pensioners, claiming their pension will be stopped unless they update their certificate or submit personal details through a provided link. The Indian government has warned that clicking the link might lead to the user's phone getting hacked. The government also added that it does not use WhatsApp or any other social media platform to communicate regarding the pension certificate. The dollar clung to 7-week highs against major currencies as investors pondered the outlook for US rates after a strong jobs report last week dashed bets for large rate cuts. Traders have drastically shifted their monetary easing expectations from the Federal Reserve this year. Markets are no longer fully pricing in a rate cut in November and are ascribing an 86% chance of a 25 basis points reduction. FTX received court approval of its bankruptcy plan, which will allow it to fully repay customers using up to $16.5 billion in assets recovered since the once leading crypto exchange collapsed. The plan is built on a series of settlements with FTX customers and creditors, US government agencies and liquidators appointed to wind down FTX operations outside the US. The statements allow FTX to use its assets to repay customers of its crypto exchange first before paying potentially competing claims filed by government regulators, and FTX plans to repay 98% of its customers. Foxconn is building the world's largest manufacturing facility, making the NVIDIA GB200 chip to help meet awfully huge demand for the AI darling's Blackwell platform. Foxconn, the world's largest contract electronics manufacturer, known as Apple's biggest iPhone assembler, has been benefiting from artificial intelligence boom, given it also makes servers.